So on your own, you are going to be using code first to generate a database. And this is going to be the basis for your final project. So if you have a previous app that you created and you want to develop further, that's fine. And if you want to create a brand new one, that is okay too. Make sure you add the individual authentication. That is super important because it's really hard to add it after the fact. You are going to want to customize the layout view, your index, context, contact, and about view pages. You have to install Entity Framework 6. You should also be using Bootstrap 4. I do have an example that you can download. And for the example, I actually generated 4 models. One is adoption, animal, donations, and graphic. And graphics are photographs of the animals, and I did put them in a separate table, and that allows me actually to pull the graphics into different interfaces because we are going to eventually get into pulling from multiple tables and displaying the data in a view. So kind of separating out those photos allows me to easily pull it into whatever interface I want. And it is super helpful to do the diagram. So these are my 4 tables, and this diagram's how they are related. Okay, so you can see that adoption is the many table. So one patron or person can adopt multiple animals, and a single animal can be adopted more than one time. And then as far as the graphics go, an animal can have multiple graphics. And so I used the convention of IDs for the primary key, and then for the foreign keys, I put in the class name in front of ID. Then next step is to do your data access layer. And you do need a context class, and you need an initializer class that will seed your tables. And try to get 8 to 10 entries for each entity or class. So I did that as well. Here's my data access layer. I called it animal context. Okay, so you can see that I'm generating the tables. And then I did also do the initializer with several entries per. And the related tables obviously have to come after the primary ones. And that's because you have to know this foreign key information to fill it in. So in mine, I had to do animal and patrons first, then I could do the adoptions and the graphics. And if you look, here's patrons, here's animal, those are my 1 tables. They have to be done first before the many. Also, noting that 1 to many, this is also important. So in the classes themselves, you do have to note the navigation properties. So one animal can have many adoptions, one animal can have many photos, so those are collections. Okay, the graphic is related to animal, so this indicates 1 animal. Okay. A patron can have many adoptions, so we're using a collection. Make sure you get those navigation properties in there correctly. You will also need the foreign keys in there correctly. This doesn't have a foreign key. Graphic does. Okay? Animal ID is the foreign key. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys. Let me know if you need help with that. After you do your data access layer, then you have to modify web config. You should not have to do anything with local DB other than change the name. You will need to create that initializer class or specify the initializer and the context. So let me show you what that looks like. Okay, so this section up here was put in here by default, okay? All I did was change the default name to animal context. I did not change anything else, and this is the database name that it is going to use. And then I also added down here inside Entity Framework. Okay, so I had to add that context so it would know where the context was located and where my initializer was located. So you do need to make changes to the web config. After you do that, really important to build so that the project knows about all of this, and then you can generate your entity framework controller and views. You're going to modify the layout to include your action links, and then you're going to make sure the CRUD functions work. And then because you guys are using authentication, there's actually a couple things that you're going to need to take a look at. So layout needs to be changed. Okay, because you have to add your new links. And then you'll notice that below that we have login partial. So this is for the login and registration. And so that's located right here. So you'll notice that I went ahead and added the Bootstrap 4 information for my navigation items so that they display correctly. I'm going to go ahead and run this because I did do a little customizing. Okay, so home, about, and contact, I modified all of those, which you also need to do. And you can see animals, patrons, adoption, and photo. Those are my new ones. I did format, register, and login. I mean, and you can kind of take a look. The minute you click on anything that generates a database, so that includes all of these. It does take a little longer to display. And I did test all of these CRUD functions. And you'll notice I did some styling in here, which you can see in the project, you know, exactly what I did. Also for the photo index, instead of showing the path to the photo, which is what some of these other ones are showing, I actually have it displaying the photo itself. And so I did do some editing to not only the index page, but the edit page and the detail page and the delete page. I adjusted all of the titles so that on all of the pages, the titles look similar. And how did I do that with the photos? So we'll take a look here for graphics and index. So this is the code that was generated. And I commented out what was generated and added this little line. So instead of just being text, I need it to interpret that text as a URL because I was giving it a path to the actual image, right? So URL.content converts the text to a URL so it can pull the picture. These pictures were huge, so I actually styled them so they'd only be 150 pixels wide. And I did something similar in the edit, the details, and the delete. So if we take a look at the edit, you can see that I added the image up here at the top. And I had a little more room, so I made it a little wider. And I floated it to the right, which is why it's on the right-hand side of the page. Okay, and this is connecting to the model photo. So the model being my graphic model. And then you can see that I have a photo property here. So that's what it is connecting to. Okay, so it is possible to store your pictures and to display them if you want to do something like that. And you can download this entire project and take a look in case you're curious about how I did anything. And if you have problems or questions, let me know. If you have a problem, I am going to need to see your entire project. So don't do a video and show me the video. I actually have to look at the code because problems can happen in any number of places. So I have to see the code so I can kind of follow and figure out what the problem is. So make sure that you put it up on GitHub and I can download everything and run it. So I need the bin and everything. So once you're done, assuming you don't have a problem, make sure that you copy git ignore and git attribute into your folder and you add it to GitHub. If you do have a problem, you're going to want to copy git ignore into there before you upload it so that I can run your project. And let me know if you have any questions or problems.